Welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Main thing we talked about in that last segment is the death of 2 more United States soldiers in Afghanistan at the hands of a Muslim wearing a uniform, a policeman. So it's policemen and members of the Afghanistan military that are killing our own soldiers. They're cannon fodder. They're sitting ducks. It's like being at a county fair with those ducks kind of bobbing along, and you've got somebody there with a rifle taking pot shots at them. They're as defenseless as the ducks in a shooting gallery. So I think it's just way past time for us to realize, look, it's impossible to build a nation in a Muslim country. It cannot be done. The only thing we can do is send missionaries there, invite them to convert to Christianity. Then there's maybe a chance you can do something with them. If they say, no, we're not interested in the gospel, we don't want your Jesus, we don't want your gospel, we say, fine, that's your choice. Just don't give us a reason to come back here with the Marines and missiles. Let's go back to our phones. Let's go to Jim, Pontotoc, Mississippi. Jim, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
I wanted to call you and tell you about a dream that I had a few weeks ago, and I'll give you the short version of it.
Okay.
Because everything in this dream had symbolism. But I dreamed that I was at the White House, and there was this young man, politician, looked like he was in his 40s, real nice-looking guy. He was sitting in a lazy boy recliner, and this other older lady was standing up kind of in front of him, and they were both laughing and giggling. They were being, I was entertainment to them like you'd watch America's Funniest Videos, because I was scared in this dream that there was an evil spirit, an evil presence in the White House. And she said that all that spirit is as harmless as a little girl. Matter of fact, it's nothing more than a little girl spirit here in the White House with us. Look up on the balcony. You can see it. And I looked up there on the balcony, and it was up there, and it was cloaked in rags. And she called it down beside of her, and it just appeared beside of her. And it had gray, matted hair. And she was petting it on the head, and see, it's harmless. It's nothing to it. And the guy in the lazy boy, he was laughing his head off because it was scaring me, and I started rebuking it in the name of Jesus. And it entertained them that it scared me, but that demonic spirit leaned over a little bit because it was about as tall as a little girl. And when I seen its face, it had rotted flesh, and where eyes are, it was just 2 hollow holes full of gangrene. And they were laughing their heads off and said, and was petting it on the head, saying, this spirit is so harmless. And I knew that it was not the spirit of a little girl, that it was a demonic spirit in the White House. And I started rebuking it in the name of Jesus. And I don't know what that spirit, you would call that spirit. You can call it Islam, you can call it communism, or whatever it is, but it's in the White House.
Now, Jim, did your dream finish? Did something happen at the end of this dream?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What happened?
I started rebuking this evil spirit in the name of Jesus, and the dream was so horrible and scary that the Lord removed me from that dream by, see, this is the long part of it. I wanted to just give you the short version, but the Lord removed me from that dream by having me dream that I was in a dream. Me and my wife were in this bedroom, and we were in single beds, and there was a nightstand between us, and she got up from her bed and got in the bed with me and started comforting me and waking me up and telling me that it was all right and everything.
So you did not see in the dream, you did not see the outcome of your efforts to rebuke this spirit. You don't know whether it left or stayed. You weren't able to see that?
I was not able to see whether the spirit left or stayed.
That's an interesting thing, Jim, and I appreciate your call. And again, everybody's going to have to make up their own mind about how much substance and weight to give to an experience like that. But, it's interesting to me. Let's assume for the sake of argument that there's something legitimate here, that this truly was a dream of some significance. It's interesting to me that he doesn't see how the story ends. And you got a lot of things like that in the scriptures, like the parable of the prodigal son, for instance. We don't know. Jesus doesn't tell us how that story ends. Remember, the story ends with the father outside appealing to the older brother to come inside and join the party. And we don't know whether the older brother decided to come in or not, or stay outside. In other words, I think the reason Jesus left it undefined is that he was telling that parable to the Pharisees, and he was saying to them, look, you guys are the ones that are going to write the end of this parable. I cannot tell you how this story ends. You are the ones who are going to determine how this story ends. And I think if there is some significance to it, and again, I'm not saying that because I'm not an expert on these matters, but if there is, for the sake of argument, something to that, then I think one of the reasons it may have been inconclusive is God is saying to the American people, look, whether that spirit stays, whatever that spirit is, whatever it represents, whether it stays at the heart of our nation's government or whether it goes, that is going to be up to you as the American people. You are going to be the ones that are going to write the end to Jim's dream. Now, I want to go to a special guest. I asked Jan, producer, and Jeff, my co-producer, to contact Gary. Gary, are you with me?
I am.
Gary Randall from the state of Washington. And Gary, before I get to the specifics, just let our listening audience know a little bit about your who you work with, your organization, and how people can get more information about the organization you work with.
Well, I'm the president of Faith and Freedom Foundation. We're based up here in the Northwest, and Faith and Freedom Network, which is a companion organization. And we're based, as I said, up here in the Northwest, in Bellevue, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle.
Now,
and we're advancing. We're agreeing with you 99.9% of the time, Brian.
Now, Gary, the reason I called you, I got a voicemail from you just a little bit ago. In fact, the call came in the middle of the last segment, and I grabbed the voicemail, and I had a story in my stack. In fact, it's sitting at the top of one of my stacks to get into today. It has to do with what's going on in the state of Washington, and you're hip deep in the middle of this thing. There is a referendum on the ballot in the state of Washington that deals with the issue of marriage. So first of all, Gary, make our listeners aware of what this referendum is and what it would do depending on whether the vote is yes or no.
Okay. This last session here in the state of Washington, he's a homosexual activist and a very powerful one in the Senate, Senator Ed Murray. In fact, we have 6 active, open legislators that are homosexual, openly so, and then a number of sympathizers in the state legislature. And the governor, who is not gay, but she has been very, very supportive of this and helped sort of shepherd the bill through. But they offered a bill to redefine marriage as, not between one man and one woman. And Ed Murray was able to lead this thing through, and there were 4 Republicans who forsook the party and where the rest of the party was on that in the state, and they voted in favor of it. One of them is on television now, a representative from Walla Walla, which is down in the southern part of the state, the southeastern part. She's on the air daily on an ad making a very passionate appeal for people to support gay marriage and the redefinition of marriage, and she's a Republican. And then there were 4 senators. One of them now has been appointed by the governor to a committee job, which pays about $100,000 a year for on a 5-year contract. So that got her out of her election. The other 2 that made this possible were not up for election this particular election cycle. One of them he's from Mercer Island, which is in the Seattle area there. So anyway, that's the background. That's how it got passed. But the bill was passed without those Republicans voting for it. It would not have passed. But that's how it got passed, and it definitely just redefines marriage and changes the wording that it is not between a man and a woman. But I don't have the bill in front of me, but anyway, it legalizes gay marriage is what it does.
But the citizens weren't willing to let that be the last word.
No. So we started a statewide referendum. It's Referendum 74, and we were the promoters of R74. I mean, we, the Christian community and the conservative community, and we got it on the ballot with a record number of signatures, over 200,000. And now that it's on the ballot, we are not the friend of R74, we're the foe, because now the vote is to reject it, because R74 means that the law stands, so we reject the thing that we got on the ballot.
If it gets, the referendum means if it gets a majority of yes votes, the law stays in place. If people want to overturn the law and reinstate natural marriage, then they need to reject Referendum 74. So you're looking for a no vote on this thing. Now, State of Washington.
Reject vote.
Yeah, state of Washington is considered pretty liberal. King County kind of runs that state, and it leans pretty decidedly liberal. I've got family that live up there, so I kind of know what you're dealing with there.
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
And some of the early polling data, we've only got about a minute left, Gary, but some of the early polling data was showing a double-digit lead for same-sex marriage. But I've got a story in front of me from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer indicating that there's some breaking polling data that may be encouraging for supporters of natural marriage. Tell us about that in the next minute.
Some of the numbers as lately as a month ago were 51% to 37% against us in favor of gay marriage, 51 to 37. Stuart Elway, who is pretty well recognized in this area up here, Elway Polling, came out just yesterday, I think it was, with some numbers, and they're just starting to circulate, and he's finding now that it is 49-45 in favor of gay marriage, but the gap is closing, and we're pretty excited about that. And you know, I was concerned. I'm less concerned today if those numbers are true, and he's pretty reliable. So I think it's looking much, much better for us.
Well, Gary, listen, I appreciate it very much. Gary Randall with Faith and Freedom up in the state of Washington in the Seattle area, indicating that the gap is closing. This was kind of considered to be a lost cause by a lot of folks. Same-sex marriage is too many liberals in Washington. But now the gap is closed from double digits to just 4 points. And so advocates for natural marriage have reason to be encouraged about what's going on in the state of Washington. Well, Gary, thank you very much for taking time on short notice to be with us. And God bless you, my friend. Keep up the good work in Washington.
Thanks, Brian.
Gary Randall, Faith and Freedom, state of Washington. Encouraging news from the area of Seattle and the state of Washington. Focal Point, AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. We'll be right back after the news. Stay with us.